Hey guys, so we got a new original Survivor coming to Dead by Daylight, scheduled to be released on October 19th. Unfortunately, since the Survivor's original, it doesn't look like we're going to get Sydney Prescott this time. Sorry guys. One of the Survivor's new perks will be a Boon Totem. Survivor perks called Boon Totems will transform a Dull Totem into a Boon Totem when blessed by a Survivor. Killers can snuff out Boon Totems to deactivate the associated Boon perk and dispel its blessings. I'm sure everyone who plays Killer, including myself, just died a little bit inside hearing that. We'll also have a few teaser images from the upcoming update. We don't know if the new images are teasing the new Survivor or possibly the new Halloween event, since it won't be Blight themed anymore. Unfortunately, that's all of the leaked information we have about the new upcoming Survivor. So in this video, what I want to do is look at 4 original Survivor concepts created by the community and review them based on their originality and the perks that they have. So the first one we have is Detective Aberlin, who is based on a real character from the Jack the Ripper era. We have Dr. Baleen, who looks like she might be inspired by Mercy from Overwatch. She's sort of a combat medic. We have Freyja, who is a fourth wall breaking, toxic Dead by Daylight survivor. And then Nico Bravo, who is sort of a Nathan Drake type explorer adventurer character. So we're going to start with Detective Aberline. Now, if you want to read any of the characters' backstories, you can go ahead and pause and read them. I'm not really interested in their backstories too much, but unfortunately with this one specifically, I don't think you can because the quality of the upload was just too poor. So I'm going to go straight to the perks. Constable's Inkling is his first perk. When you recover from the dying, injured state or get saved from the hook, your status change is delayed to the killer by 6 seconds and the killer will not be notified. When you heal someone or save someone from the hook, their status change is delayed to the killer by 4 seconds and the killer will not be notified. This is a pretty cool perk. It's like a anti-tunneling, anti-proxy camping perk. You can get somebody out of the basement. If the killer is nearby, he won't get the notification until you're out of the basement that the person's been unhooked. So I think this definitely has value and would actually be used over some of the meta perks that are in the game right now. His second perk is Creed's Alley. Auras that are visible to you will also be visible to survivors that are within 8 meters of you. Survivors within 8 meters of you will also get notifications from any detection perks you are running. So this will synergize well with perks like Detective's Hunch, because if you're doing a gen with somebody and you finish the gen, you'll both see all of the totems on the map. So that's kind of cool that it synergizes with Detective's Hunch. And you get a notification from detection perks, so that will mean like perks like Spine Chill or Premonition will work for the teammate that's also working on the generator for you. So this is more of a solo survivor perk. A Swift will be able to just say these things, but if you're a solo survivor, you can get value out of this for sure. His last perk is Survival Instincts. Gain the ability to see survivors' scratch marks within a 16-meter range. If the killer hits a survivor within a 32-meter range of you, the killer's aura is revealed to you for 3 seconds. This perk has some value. Being able to see survivors' scratch marks within a 16-meter range is definitely the more interesting part of the perk. Seeing the killer's aura within a 32-meter range when he hits a survivor has some value for sure, but I think that empathy is going to give you more information. So if that's what you're using the perk for, empathy is already going to be better. So that pretty much makes the meat of the perk about the scratch marks. I'm not sure how much value there is in seeing survivor scratch marks. You could definitely help muddy their tracks better if they're getting tunneled or they're on death hook, and maybe you can use that to lure the killer to your teammates if you're on death hook and they haven't been hooked yet and they're self-carrying in the corner the whole game and you want some grudge match. But overall, I'd say 2 out of the 3 perks are good and the other one's okay. Alright, moving on to Freyja. Now, again, her backstory's there if you want to read it. It's pretty short, but long story short, she is a toxic survivor. I also like that her difficulty is impossible. Alright, her first perk, Dinky's Revenge. Ever since being transported to this twisted and nightmarish realm, Freyja's charm for her cat Dinky, who passed away, has obtained magical and strange powers, which grants you certain bonuses. For each hooked survivor, gain a 24-meter radius where the killer cannot hear your actions and you can hear theirs twice as loud. Okay, so the second part of this perk, I'm not going to bother reading because I think this was before the endgame collapse update, and the second part of this perk doesn't actually do anything. So the first part of the perk alone is very strong, so I don't think there needs to be a second part anyway. It basically gives you infinite quick and quiet while one of your teammates is hooked, which is pretty strong, especially if you're on a map like Larry's or whatnot. Um, there's almost going to be a survivor hook for the majority of every game, so there's an insane amount of value on that. It's really strong, so I could see that it would be used, and it's a good perk. I don't know if it's overpowered. You'd have to find out. Her second perk is Toxic Intent. A little blood on your hands is always exhilarating, and at the end of the day, every man and woman for themselves, right? After successfully escaping a chase, other survivors within a 32-meter radius of the killer will be revealed to the killer for 5 seconds. This has a 3-minute cooldown period after activating. Um, I'm pretty much against toxic perks like this completely, and this is really toxic. Like, you would destroy your team using this perk, so this one definitely gets a 0 for me. Her last perk, Get Your Dirty Ass Back Here. That's a bullshit hit and you know it. For every 5 seconds you are within the killer's terror radius and not in a chase, gain 1 token up to a maximum of 4 tokens. Each token gives you a haste status effect of 3%. When entering a chase or when in the killer's terror radius and not moving, you lose 1 token every 2 seconds. Tokens are preserved but not activated when outside of the killer's terror radius. Alright, so this is almost like a secondary sprint burst that you can kind of just unlock by being stealthy within the killer's terror radius. Um, I'm not really sure what this would work like. If you mixed it with sprint burst, you might get some insane rocket speed. So I'm not so sure if this would work, but it could also be fine. I'm just not really sure. It's kind of a meh perk. Now we have Dr. Baleen, who doesn't have a story, and you can see her biocapsule there that is tied to one of her perks. Her first perk is, well, biocapsule. Your understanding of medicinal care and technology helps when mending injuries. After healing 2 health states on yourself or other survivors, biocapsule activates. Enter a locker while empty-handed and press the ability button to craft a biocapsule. After consuming a biocapsule, heal 1 health state and gain endurance for 10 seconds. Biocapsule can be used to heal from the dying state, but endurance won't trigger from this. So this is a really strong meta perk. Like, since that you can heal yourself or other teammates to gain the ability to unlock this, it's really strong. I don't think it's too strong though. I think that it's just strong enough to be used. It's kind of a cool healing perk. We'd have to see if everyone's running it. It could maybe be a little overwhelming, but I think it's a pretty cool perk. I like strong perks, and then if they're too strong, it's better to just nerf them a little bit rather than having a useless perk that no one will ever use for any reason ever. She also has an exhaustion perk called Guardian Angel. Your selflessness allows you to summon great strength in times of need. Pressing active ability button next to a survivor in the dying state allows you to pick them up and move them for 15 seconds. While carrying a survivor, you cannot vault or interact with pallets, vault windows, etc. At the end of the 15 seconds, or when you drop the carried survivor, you suffer from the exhausted status effect for 50 seconds. Guardian Angel cannot be activated while exhausted. This perk is probably my favorite I've seen so far. I don't know if anyone will be able to beat this perk. It's not in any way very strong. If anything, it's going to be mostly used for something like carrying a down teammate out of the exit gate. I don't think that this can be abused in any way, and anything that makes me see less dead hard is always going to be a plus, because right now in the game, dead hard is an absolute nightmare to deal with. Her last perk is Combat Service Training. Your understanding of combat allows you to go on the offensive. While sprinting for 3 seconds, Combat Service Training activates. Pressing the active ability button will allow you to tackle forward. Hitting the killer will stun you both and apply the deep wound status effect. A killer who has been hit with Combat Service Training is unaffected by it again for 60 seconds. Hitting breakable walls and pallets will only stun you. Combat Service Training has a cooldown of 80 seconds and won't start its cooldown if Deep Wound is still in effect. Oof. This perk is probably the most horribly designed perk I think I've ever seen. It is insanely overpowered. Like, if this perk was actually added to the game, I think every single person who plays killer would rage quit. Like, this is a nightmare. Stunning people in video games in general is not fun, And especially in Dead by Daylight when it's already a 4v1, adding a stun to the game like this that doesn't really require that much skill to pull off would stop the killer from ever getting a hook pretty much, and is insanely toxic. Like, yeah, this would destroy the game. So she's definitely going to lose some points for this one. Moving on to our last survivor, we have Nico Bravo. He also doesn't have a story, but like I said, you kind of get the idea that he is an adventurer type character. His first perk is Lost at Sea. You never learn to hide, you know to run. Increase the radius of your scratch marks by 4 meters. Whenever your scratch marks would be hidden to the killer, they will appear, but your aura cannot be read instead. So basically, this perk gives you a complete immunity to all perks that have aura revealing to the killer, so like barbecue, at the cost of the fact that you can never hide your scratch marks. So if you're walking or crouching, the killer will still see your scratch marks appear. I think that this perk would be really good for people who like to run killers and get their attention, as it's going to be kind of confusing reading scratch marks that are so wide. And maybe you could run it with something like Object of Obsession so that they synergize with each other and the killer can't see your aura and you can only see his. It's a pretty strong perk in that way, but for everyone else, it's going to be more of something that gets them killed. His second perk is Lifeline. Your bond with others grows strongest when you are far away. For every 10 seconds in a chase, gain a token. For every token, grant 5% increased repairing speed to all survivors. If you escape the chase, Lifeline will lose 1 token every 3 seconds. If you are put in the dying state, Lifeline loses all tokens. Okay, again, so this is very much a run the killer perk, but this one is a nightmare. Like, imagine if every survivor was running this perk. The gen speed stack increases would be so insane that the gens would just fly. You wouldn't have a chance. Like, you would be so horrifically punished for chasing a survivor that there would be no reason to play any other killer in the game but like Wraith, because he doesn't really chase survivors anyway. Yeah, probably almost equally as bad as the stun perk, but the stun perk still is just horrific. Definitely don't like this one. His last perk is Poppy Blood. Poppies will bloom as long as you don't need them to bleed. You become the obsession. For every injured survivor, Poppy Blood gains 1 token. For every survivor inflicted with deep wound, Poppy Blood gains 2 additional tokens. All survivors gain 1% speed increase for every token. If you aren't the obsession, this perk deactivates. So this perk looks okay. The speed increase, I'm not sure how much you would actually get from it. It looks like it would be a pretty small speed increase. Even if all 4 survivors had deep wound effect, the speed increase would still kind of be marginal, and I'm not sure how much that would actually affect the gameplay. It would be an interesting perk to kind of test out and see how it would affect the game, but overall it's nothing too exciting. Alright, now that we have looked at all of the survivors, I'm going to rate them. For me, it's an easy 4th is Freya. She just having like a toxic survivor is like one thing who breaks the 4th wall. I kind of like the idea of her, but her perks are way too actually toxic to be in the game. Number 3, I'm going to go with Nico Bravo. He's just not that interesting, I don't think, of a character. Maybe if we could see more of him, but right now he's kind of just a head without much of a backstory. I like the idea a little bit, but again, 2 out of the 3 of his perks were very meh. One completely breaks the game, the other one's kind of boring, and then he has one that is meant to run the killer, and I think that perks like that usually end up making the game kind of worse. So between the detective and the doctor is kind of a hard one for me. I like the idea of both of these characters a lot, and both of them have some good perks, but for me, even though the doctor has a perk that pretty much completely would ruin the game, I'm still going to go with her being first, just because her other 2 perks are so awesome and they actually make me want to play with those perks. As whereas the detective kind of plays it safe and his perks are more like they're good, but they don't make me really think of any builds that I want to make and get on the game and play them. So for me, Dr. Braylene is going to take the win this time, but let me know what you guys think in the comments. Which survivor would you like to see? Which perks would you like to see? And if you have your own original idea, let me know. I'd like to see it myself. But only time will tell. I'll see you guys on October 19th when we know who the survivor actually is.